Did you see it?
Yeah, I see it. We did it.
The pregnancy test sat on our bathroom counter. 2 pink lines. After 3 years of fertility treatments, failed IVF cycles, and enough medical bills to buy a decent car, my wife Claire was finally pregnant. I should have been dancing. Instead, I stood there staring at those lines while something cold crawled up my spine. "Danny?" Claire's voice drifted from the bedroom, sweet and nervous. "Did you see it?" I picked up the test with trembling fingers. Yeah, I see it." She appeared in the doorway wearing my old college t-shirt, her dark hair messy from sleep. For a moment, she looked like the girl I'd married 8 years ago, before the needles, the hormones, the monthly disappointments that had carved lines around her eyes. "We did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We actually did it." I pulled her close, breathing in her familiar vanilla scent. "We did it," I repeated, but the words tasted wrong in my mouth. Maybe it was the timing. We hadn't been intimate in months, not since our last failed cycle in February. Claire had been distant, claiming she needed space to heal emotionally from the disappointment. Dr. Falk had assured us this was normal, that couples often struggled with closeness during fertility treatments. Dr. Adrian Falk. Even thinking his name made my jaw tighten. He'd been our fertility specialist for 2 years, recommended by Claire's gynecologist after our first doctor retired. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of confident smile that made desperate couples trust him with their dreams. And their money. Lots of money. "I should call Dr. Falk," Claire said, pulling away from me. "He'll want to schedule lab tests to confirm the levels." "It's 7 in the morning. He said to call any time if this happened, remember?" He gave me his personal cell number. I remembered. What I couldn't remember was him giving his personal number to any other patients. But then again, I'd stopped paying attention to the small details months ago, too exhausted by the process to notice much of anything. Claire was already dialing, her fingers shaking with excitement. "Dr. Falk, it's Claire Hayes. We got a positive test this morning." Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, intimate in a way that made me step back. "Yes, this morning, 2 lines, very clear." I watched her pace the bedroom, nodding at whatever he was saying. She laughed, actually laughed, at something he said. When was the last time I'd made her laugh like that? "Okay, yes, I'll see you at 11. Thank you so much, Adrian." Adrian, not Dr. Falk, Adrian. "He's fitting me in this morning," she said, hanging up. "He's so excited for us." "Us," I repeated. "Don't be like that. He's been working just as hard as we have to make this happen." Had he? I tried to remember the last time Falk had really talked to me during our appointments. Usually he focused on Claire, explaining procedures to her while I sat in the corner like expensive furniture. "I'll come with you," I said. Claire's smile flickered. "Actually, he said it might be better if I came alone this first time, just for the initial blood draw and exam. You know how crowded that little room gets?" The room wasn't crowded. It was designed for couples. But I nodded anyway, because fighting about doctor visits was exactly the kind of stress we didn't need right now. Claire showered and got dressed with more care than she'd shown in months. She chose a blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the same anniversary she'd claimed she was too tired to celebrate. "I'll probably be gone a couple hours," she said, kissing my cheek. "He wants to do a full workup." After she left, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, staring at the pregnancy test she'd left on the counter like a trophy. 3 years of trying. 3 years of hope and disappointment, of watching my wife inject herself with hormones that made her cry over dog food commercials, of pretending I wasn't slowly dying inside every time another cycle failed. And now, suddenly, success. I should have been calling my parents, my brother, anyone who'd listen. Instead, I found myself opening my laptop and Googling false positive pregnancy tests, then probability of natural conception after IVF failure, then almost without thinking, paternity testing early pregnancy. My phone rang. My business partner, James. "Hey, you sound weird. Everything okay?" "Claire's pregnant." Silence. Then, "Holy crap, man, that's incredible. How are you feeling?" How was I feeling? Suspicious, paranoid. Like the ground had shifted beneath my feet and I couldn't find my balance. "Good," I lied. "Really good. We should celebrate. Dinner tonight? Bring Claire? She's got a doctor's appointment." Rain check? After James hung up, I sat in the silence of our empty house, listening to the clock tick and trying to convince myself I was being crazy. Claire was pregnant. We were going to have a baby. This was what we'd wanted, what we'd spent thousands of dollars and countless tears trying to achieve. So why did it feel like the biggest lie of my life? The front door opened at 2:30. I'd been working in my home office, but I could hear Claire's footsteps in the kitchen, lighter than they'd been in months. "How did it go?" I called. "Perfect. My levels are exactly where they should be for about 6 weeks along." 6 weeks. I tried to do the math. Our last failed cycle had been in February. It was now mid-April. The timing worked, barely if she'd gotten pregnant naturally right after the procedure failed. If, Doctor. Falk wants to see me again next week, Claire continued, just to monitor everything closely. He says this pregnancy is precious after everything we've been through. Precious. The word stuck in my throat. Claire made herself a sandwich and curled up on the couch with a pregnancy book she'd hidden away after our last failure. She looked happy for the first time in months, glowing in that way people always talk about with pregnant women. I should have been happy too. That night she fell asleep early, one hand resting on her still flat stomach. I lay beside her in the dark, listening to her breathe and fighting the voice in my head that kept whispering the same question over and over. What if the baby isn't yours? The thought was poison. I tried to push it away, to focus on the miracle of finally getting what we'd wanted. But it had taken root, and like all poisonous things, it grew in the dark. I knew Claire loved me. We'd been together for 10 years, married for 8. We'd survived infertility, financial stress, the loss of my father, her mother's breast cancer scare. We were solid, weren't we? I thought about the distance between us over the past few months. The way she'd started working late more often, claiming her marketing job was demanding more hours. The way she'd stopped initiating closeness, then stopped responding to my attempts. The way she'd become protective of her phone, taking it to the bathroom, charging it on her side of the bed instead of the kitchen counter. Small things, probably meaningless things, but they added up to doubt, and doubt was a cancer that ate everything healthy in its path. The next morning, I made a decision I'd regret for the rest of my life, or maybe it would save my life. I wasn't sure which yet. I called in sick to work and drove to Quest Diagnostics across town, the one where Claire and I had never been. I told them I wanted a paternity test, the kind they could do early in pregnancy using the mother's blood. We'd need a sample from the mother, the lab technician explained, and the alleged father. Alleged father. The words hit me like a physical blow. My wife is seeing her doctor today, I said. She's having blood drawn for prenatal screening. Could you test a sample if I brought it in? The technician looked uncomfortable. Sir, we'd need both parents' consent for that kind of testing. I left without scheduling anything, but the idea was planted. Claire was having blood drawn at Falk's clinic that afternoon for routine prenatal screening. She'd mentioned it over breakfast, complaining about how many vials they needed. That evening, I kissed her goodnight and went to my office to research private investigators. I found Michael Torres through a referral website, ex-police detective turned private investigator, specializing in infidelity cases. His photo showed a middle-aged Hispanic man with tired eyes and a serious expression. I called his office the next morning. Torres Investigations. I need to hire you. I think my wife might be having an affair. Can you come in today? I have an opening at 3. His office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. Torres looked exactly like his photo, tired but sharp, the kind of guy who noticed everything and forgot nothing. Tell me what's going on, he said, gesturing to a worn leather chair across from his desk. I told him everything. The pregnancy, the timing, the distance between Claire and me, her closeness with Dr. Falk. As I spoke, Torres took notes in a small notebook, occasionally nodding. How long has she been seeing this doctor? About 2 years, since our first fertility specialist retired. And the pregnancy happened naturally. Not through IVF. That's what she says, what they both say. Torres leaned back in his chair. I've worked a few cases involving medical professionals. They have advantages that regular cheaters don't. Access to private offices, legitimate reasons to see each other, built-in explanations for intimate contact. My stomach clenched. So, you think I'm right? I think you're smart to be suspicious. The timing is convenient, and the personal phone number thing is a red flag. How do you want to proceed? I want to know the truth, whatever it costs. Torres quoted me a daily rate that made me wince, but I agreed. He explained he'd start with basic surveillance, following Claire, documenting her activities, looking for patterns. What about the doctor? Him too, but carefully. Medical professionals are usually smart about covering their tracks. I left Torres's office feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because I was finally doing something instead of just wondering. Heavier because I was officially the kind of man who hired private investigators to follow his pregnant wife. Claire was cooking dinner when I got home, humming while she stirred pasta sauce. She'd put on makeup for the first time in weeks, and she was wearing the red dress I'd always loved on her. "You look beautiful," I said, kissing her neck. She leaned into me. "Doctor?" "Falk says exercise and feeling attractive are important for a healthy pregnancy," Dr. Falk says. Always, Dr. Falk. "How was your appointment?" "Good. He did an ultrasound. Want to see?" She pulled out a grainy black and white photo from her purse. I stared at the blob in the center, trying to feel something other than suspicion. "That's our baby," Claire said softly, her hand covering mine. Our baby. I hoped so. Torres called 3 days later. "We need to meet. Tonight, if possible." His voice had changed, gone flat and professional in a way that made my hands shake. We met at a coffee shop near his office. Torres slid a manila envelope across the small table. "I'll cut to the chase. Your wife is having an affair with Dr. Falk." The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd been expecting them. "You're sure? Look at the photos." I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. The first photo showed Claire and Falk leaving a hotel together. The second showed them in the parking lot of his clinic after hours, her arms around his neck. The third showed them kissing in his car. All the photos were dated within the last month. "There's more," Torres said quietly. "I talked to a nurse who used to work at his clinic. She quit 6 months ago because she was uncomfortable with how he treated female patients. She says there were rumors about him having inappropriate relationships." I stared at the photos, my vision blurring around the edges. The baby could be his. The timing lines up. She started the affair about 3 months ago, according to what I could document. 3 months ago, right around the time she'd started pulling away from me, claiming she needed space to heal from our fertility struggles. "What do you want me to do now?" Torres asked. I looked at the photos again. My wife of 8 years, the woman I'd trusted with everything, wrapped around another man. A man who'd taken our money, our hope, and apparently my wife. "I want you to find out everything about Dr. Falk. His finances, his other patients, his personal life, everything. That's going to take time and money." "I don't care about the money." Torres studied my face. "What are you planning?" I didn't answer because I didn't know yet. But I knew one thing for certain. Dr. Adrian Falk was going to pay for what he'd done, and so was Claire. I went home to my pregnant wife and pretended nothing had changed. I kissed her goodnight and held her while she slept, all while planning the destruction of everything she'd built with her lies. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Every morning I'd wake up next to Claire and pretend to be excited about the baby. Every evening I'd listen to her talk about her appointments with Falk and nod like a supportive husband. Every night I'd lie awake planning my revenge. Torres called with updates every few days. He'd found evidence that Falk had been investigated by the medical board 3 years ago for inappropriate conduct with a patient, but the complaint had been dropped. He'd discovered that Falk was going through a messy divorce and had significant financial problems. Most importantly, he'd found 2 other women who suspected Falk had fathered their children during fertility treatments. "This guy is a hunter," Torres said during one of our meetings. "He's been using his position to take advantage of vulnerable women for years." "Can we prove it?" "We're working on it. I've got a contact at the DNA lab who might be able to help us with paternity testing. Unofficial, of course. What do you need from me?" "A sample from you and something with your wife's DNA on it. Hairbrush, toothbrush, anything." I felt like I was crossing a line I couldn't come back from, but I was too far in to stop now. That night, I collected a few strands of Claire's hair from her brush and dropped them off with Torres the next day. A week later, he called with the results. "The baby isn't yours." I'd been expecting it, but hearing the words still felt like being punched in the chest. I sat in my car outside Torres's office, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. "You okay?" Torres asked when I finally came inside. No, but I will be. What else did you find out? Torres opened a thick file folder. Doctor. Adrian Falk is in deep financial trouble. His divorce is costing him a fortune, and he's been borrowing against his practice. He's also been using his own seed for artificial insemination procedures without patient consent. How many patients? At least 4 that we can prove, possibly more. I stared at Torres, pieces clicking into place in my mind. He's been creating his own children through his practice. That's what it looks like. It's illegal as hell, and when this comes out, he'll lose his medical license and probably face criminal charges. When this comes out? Torres smiled grimly. That's up to you. I've got enough evidence to bury both of them. The question is how you want to do it. I thought about Claire at home, probably texting with Falk about their next secret meeting. I thought about all the money we'd spent on fertility treatments while she was sleeping with the doctor who was supposed to be helping us. I thought about the lies, the deception, the way she'd made me feel crazy for being suspicious. I want to destroy them both, I said. Publicly, Torres nodded. I was hoping you'd say that. We spent the next hour planning what Torres called the exposure. He explained that timing would be crucial. We needed to coordinate the medical board complaint, the media exposure, and the legal action for maximum impact. There's a medical conference next month, Torres said. Falk will be presenting. If we time this right, we can make sure he's exposed in front of his peers. What about Claire? That's the beautiful part. When the paternity fraud comes out, she'll be implicated too. She had to know the baby wasn't yours. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in weeks. For the first time since this nightmare started, I had a plan. More than that, I had the power to make them both pay for what they'd done to me. Claire was in the kitchen when I got home, chopping vegetables for dinner. She was starting to show, her hand unconsciously resting on the small curve of her belly. How was work? She asked, not looking up from the cutting board. Fine. How was your day? Good. I had lunch with Sarah from work. She's so excited about the baby. Another lie. Torres had documented her having lunch with Falk at an upscale restaurant across town. That's nice, I said, opening a beer. When's your next appointment with Dr. Falk? Thursday. He wants to do another ultrasound. Mind if I come? I'd like to see the baby again. Claire's hand stilled on the knife. Actually, he said it might be better to keep the appointment smaller right now. Less stressful for the baby. I'm stressful for the baby. No, that's not what I meant. He thinks a lot of things, doesn't he? Claire turned to face me, her expression wary. What's that supposed to mean? I took a long drink of my beer, studying her face. She looked nervous, guilty. Good. Nothing. I just think it's interesting how involved he is in your pregnancy. Our pregnancy. He's a good doctor, Danny. He cares about his patients. I'm sure he does. That night, Claire went to bed early, claiming pregnancy exhaustion. I stayed up late in my office, going through the evidence Torres had compiled. Photos of Claire and Falk together, medical records showing his use of his own genetic material, financial documents proving his desperate situation. By the time I went to bed, I had a complete plan. Torres called the next morning with an update. I found a lawyer who specializes in medical malpractice and paternity fraud, Melissa Carter. She's expensive, but she's good, and she has a personal grudge against corrupt doctors. Personal grudge? Her sister died from a botched surgery by a doctor who was later found to be on drugs. She's made a career out of taking down medical professionals who misuse their positions. When can I meet her? This afternoon, if you want. Melissa Carter's office was in a downtown high-rise, all glass and steel and expensive furniture. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a handshake that could crack bones. Mr. Hayes, she said, gesturing to a chair across from her massive desk. Michael has filled me in on your situation. I have to say, this is one of the more egregious cases I've seen. What kind of damages are we talking about? Significant. Emotional distress, fraud, medical malpractice, violation of professional ethics. We're looking at potentially millions in damages, plus criminal charges for Dr. Falk. And my wife? She's complicit in the fraud. If she knew the baby wasn't yours and let you believe it was, she could face charges too. I felt a savage satisfaction at hearing those words. How long will this take? If we do it right, we can have everything filed and in the media within 2 weeks. The key is coordination. We file the medical board complaint, the civil suit, and release everything to the press simultaneously. What do you need from me? Everything you've got: photos, DNA evidence, financial records, communication logs. Also, I'll need you to document any conversations you have with your wife about the pregnancy. Record her. It's legal in this state as long as one party consents. That's you. I left Carter's office with a small digital recorder and instructions on how to get Claire to admit her affair on tape. It felt like the final step in my transformation from trusting husband to calculating enemy. That evening, Claire was on the phone when I got home. She was in the bedroom with the door closed, but I could hear her laughing through the wall. The same intimate laugh she'd had when she called Falk about the positive pregnancy test. When she came out 20 minutes later, she was glowing. "Who was that?" I asked casually. "Dr. Falk. He was checking on how I'm feeling." "That's nice of him. He really goes above and beyond for his patients." "He does." "He's been so supportive through this whole process." "I bet he has." "Claire, can I ask you something?" She looked up from her magazine, suddenly alert. "Sure. Are you happy? With us, I mean?" "Of course I am." "Why would you ask that?" "I just feel like there's been distance between us lately, even before the pregnancy." Claire set down her magazine and came to sit next to me on the couch. "Danny, I know things have been hard. The fertility treatments, the stress, the disappointment, but this baby changes everything. We're going to be a family." "What if the treatments had never worked? What if we'd never gotten pregnant?" "But we did get pregnant." "But what if we hadn't?" Claire was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "I don't know. I guess we would have figured it out." "Would you have stayed with me?" "Danny, why are you asking these things? Of course I would have stayed with you." But her eyes didn't meet mine when she said it. The next day, Torres called with news that made my blood run cold. "Falk knows we're investigating him." "How?" "One of his nurses saw me asking questions around the clinic. She told him someone was digging into his personal life." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean for us?" "It means we need to move fast. If he's smart, he'll start covering his tracks. Destroying evidence, coaching your wife, maybe even skipping town." "How fast?" "This weekend. Carter is filing everything Monday morning, and we're releasing it to the press that afternoon." 3 days. In 3 days, my life as I knew it would be over, and hopefully so would theirs. That night, I activated the recording device Carter had given me and had the conversation that would end my marriage. "Claire, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." We were in bed, the lights off, talking in the darkness like we used to when we were dating. "Okay," she said softly. "Is the baby mine?" I felt her entire body tense beside me. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. "Danny, just tell me the truth, please." "Why would you ask me that?" "Because I need to know." Another long silence. Then, so quietly, I almost missed it. "I don't know." The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd been expecting them. "You don't know?" "The timing. It could be yours. We were trying so hard, and then when the last IVF failed, I was so devastated. Adrian was there for me, and one thing led to another, and Adrian was there for you. It only happened a few times." "It didn't mean anything." "A few times." "Danny, please. I love you. I want this baby to be ours." "But it might not be." "I don't know," she whispered again. I lay in the darkness next to my wife, listening to her cry softly while the recording device captured every word. Tomorrow, I would give this recording to Melissa Carter, and she would use it to destroy Claire's life. I felt nothing. Saturday morning, Claire left for what she said was a baby shower for her coworker. Torres confirmed she was actually meeting Falk at his condo across town. I spent the day in my office, organizing the evidence that would be released to the media on Monday. Photos of Claire and Falk together. DNA test results proving he was the father of at least 4 children born to his patients. Financial records showing his desperate situation. Medical board complaints from other patients. By Sunday night, everything was ready. Claire came home late, claiming the baby shower had run long. She seemed nervous, distracted, checking her phone constantly. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine, just tired." "How's Dr. Falk?" She looked up sharply. "What?" "You said he called yesterday to check on you. I was just asking how he's doing." "Oh, he's fine." Good. I'd hate for anything to happen to him. Monday morning, Melissa Carter filed complaints with the medical board, the district attorney's office, and the civil courts. By noon, the story was breaking on local news websites. Fertility doctor, accused of using own seed on patients without consent. Local doctor faces multiple paternity fraud charges. Women come forward with claims against prominent fertility specialist. I watched the coverage from my office, refreshing. News websites every few minutes to see new developments. By 2 o'clock, Falk's clinic had released a statement saying he was taking a leave of absence pending investigation. My phone rang at 3, Claire sobbing. Danny, something terrible is happening. Adrian is being accused of awful things. It's all over the news. Really? What kind of things? They're saying that he used his own with patients. That's horrible. Do you think it's true? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. Are you okay? You sound upset. I'm scared, Danny. What if this affects my pregnancy? What if they investigate all his patients? Why would that scare you? Silence. Claire? I have to go. She hung up. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Torres called an hour later. It's working. Falk tried to leave town this morning, but the DA's office asked him not to travel pending investigation. He's lawyered up. What about the other women? 3 more came forward after the story broke. This is going to be huge. That evening, Claire came home looking like she'd aged 10 years. Her eyes were red from crying, and her hands shook as she hung up her keys. We need to talk, she said. About what? You know about what? I followed her into the living room. She sat heavily on the couch, her hands resting on her belly. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Known what? Don't play games with me, Danny. How long have you known about Adrian and me? I sat across from her, studying her face. She looked broken, desperate. Good. A few weeks. How? I hired a private investigator. Claire closed her eyes. I'm so sorry. Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? I never meant for this to happen. The fertility treatments were so hard on us, and Adrian was so understanding, so supportive. So you slept with him. It wasn't like that. What was it like, Claire? Help me understand how sleeping with our doctor while I was paying him to help us have a baby wasn't exactly like that. She started crying again. I was lost, Danny. The treatments weren't working, and I felt like such a failure. Adrian made me feel like I wasn't broken by impregnating you. I thought maybe it was yours. I wanted it to be yours. But you knew it might not be. Yes. And you were going to let me raise another man's child without telling me. I don't know. I was scared. I thought maybe we could be happy, and it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. I stood up, pacing to the window. Outside, I could see our neighbors' houses, their lit windows showing glimpses of normal families living normal lives. Do you have any idea what you've done to me? I asked without turning around. Danny, do you have any idea what it's been like loving you, trusting you, while you were lying to my face every single day? I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Claire. Sorry doesn't give me back the last 3 months of my life. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you were willing to let me believe I was going to be a father when you knew the baby might belong to the man you were screwing. She was sobbing now, but I felt nothing. All the love I'd felt for her, all the trust, all the plans for our future, it was all gone, burned away by her betrayal. What happens now? She asked. I turned to face her. Now you deal with the consequences of your choices. What does that mean? It means I've filed for divorce. It means I'm suing both you and your boyfriend for fraud. It means by tomorrow morning, your name is going to be all over the news as one of the women who helped Dr. Adrian Falk commit paternity fraud. Claire's face went white. You wouldn't. I already did. She stared at me in horror. Danny, please. Think about what you're doing. This will destroy my life. You should have thought about that before you destroyed mine. But the baby is not my problem. Claire stood up shakily. I need to call Adrian. Good luck with that. He's probably too busy talking to his lawyers to take your call. She grabbed her phone and dialed. I watched her face crumple as the call went to voicemail. Adrian, it's me. Please call me back. Danny knows everything. I don't know what to do. She tried 3 more times with the same result. He's not going to call you back, Claire. He's trying to save his own skin now. You don't understand. We love each other. Love each other? He's facing criminal charges and the loss of his medical license. Do you really think he's going to risk everything for you? Claire sank back onto the couch, her phone clutched in her hands. This can't be happening. It is happening. And it's going to get worse. What do you mean? The media is just getting started. The medical board investigation will take months. The civil suit will drag on for years. Every detail of your affair will be public record. My family, my job. Everyone will know. Everyone will know that you're a liar and a cheat who helped a doctor commit fraud against vulnerable couples. Yes. Claire looked up at me with something like hatred in her eyes. You're destroying an innocent baby's life, too. I'm not the one who got pregnant with another man's child while married. The baby didn't ask for this. Neither did I. We stared at each other across the living room that had once been our sanctuary. The place where we'd planned our future, celebrated good news, comforted each other through bad times. Now it felt like a courtroom where I was both judge and jury. I'll fight the divorce, Claire said suddenly. I'll claim you're mentally unstable, that you've been abusive. No judge will give you everything. I smiled. Go ahead. I have recordings of you admitting to the affair and admitting you don't know if the baby is mine. I have photos of you with Falk. I have financial records showing you helped him defraud patients. Fight all you want. Claire's face crumpled. She knew she was beaten. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered. That's not my problem anymore. Danny, please. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through this. Fix this? Claire, you didn't make a mistake. You made a series of deliberate choices to betray me, lie to me, and commit fraud. This isn't fixable. So that's it? 10 years together, and you're just throwing it all away? I'm not throwing anything away. You already destroyed it. Claire sat in silence for several minutes, her hands resting on her belly. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. You think you're so righteous, don't you? The perfect sufferer husband. But you're not innocent in this, Danny. Really? How's that? You gave up on us months ago. You stopped trying to connect with me, stopped showing me affection. You buried yourself in work and left me alone to deal with the fertility treatments. So you decided to sleep with our doctor. I decided to find comfort with someone who actually cared about how I was feeling. Comfort. Is that what you call it? You don't understand what it's like to feel broken, to feel like your own body is failing you. I was right there with you, Claire. Every appointment, every injection, every disappointment. I was right there. No, you weren't. You were physically there, but emotionally, you checked out months ago. So this is my fault. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying it's not all mine either. I stared at my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, and realized this was who she really was. Even caught red-handed, even facing the destruction of her life, she was still trying to blame me for her choices. You know what, Claire? You're right. I did check out emotionally. You want to know when? She looked up at me. It was the night you came home 3 hours late from work, and I could smell another man's cologne on your clothes. It was when you started taking your phone to the bathroom. It was when you stopped looking me in the eye when you said you loved me. My subconscious knew you were cheating before my brain caught up. Claire's face went pale. Danny, but you're right about one thing. I should have confronted you then, instead of letting it eat me alive. I should have trusted my instincts instead of trusting you. If you had talked to me, if I had talked to you, you would have lied. Just like you've been lying for months. Claire stood up abruptly. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to stay with my sister. Good idea. You'll need somewhere to live after I freeze our joint accounts tomorrow. She stared at me in shock. You can't do that. I can and I will. Check with your lawyer. I don't have a lawyer. You should get one, a good one. You're going to need it. Claire went upstairs to pack. I listened to her moving around our bedroom, opening drawers, throwing clothes into a suitcase. When she came back down, her eyes were red, but her jaw was set with determination. This isn't over, she said. Yes, it is. The baby is innocent in all this. Even if Adrian is the father, this child deserves support. Then, Adrian can support it. From prison. Claire hefted her suitcase and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she turned back. I did love you, Danny. I know you don't believe that now, but I did. Past tense. Good to know. After she left, I poured myself a drink and sat in the silence of my empty house. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. My phone rang. Torres. How did it go? She's gone. Good. How are you holding up? Better than I expected. The story is picking up steam. CNN just picked it up. Fertility doctor used own seed on unsuspecting patients. This is going national. What about Falk? His lawyer released a statement denying all charges, but 3 more women have come forward. The medical board suspended his license pending investigation. And the criminal charges? The DA is reviewing the evidence. With the DNA proof and the patient testimonies, they'll probably file charges by the end of the week. After Torres hung up, I opened my laptop and searched for news coverage of the story. My wife's affair was now national news. Her name was mentioned in several articles as one of the sufferers, though they didn't yet know she was married. That would come out soon enough. The next morning, I went to work for the first time in days. My business partner, James, was waiting in my office with coffee and a concerned expression. Holy crap, man, I saw the news about your fertility doctor. Are you guys okay? I sat down at my desk and looked at James. We'd been partners for 5 years, friends for longer. He deserved to know the truth. Claire was having an affair with him. The baby is his. James nearly dropped his coffee. Jesus Christ, are you serious? Dead serious. I hired a PI, got proof, and filed for divorce yesterday. Danny, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Nobody did. She's a good liar. What can I do? Do you need time off? Money? Anything? I need to work. I need to stay busy. James nodded. Whatever you need. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls. Normal work felt surreal after everything that had happened, but it was exactly what I needed. Purpose, focus, control. Melissa Carter called that afternoon with an update. Falk's in full panic mode. His lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea deal with the DA, which means he knows he's screwed. What kind of plea deal? Probably cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. He'll give up information about other cases, other patients. The medical board is also conducting their own investigation. What about Claire? She's hired David Park. He's expensive, but good. He'll probably advise her to cooperate with the investigation in exchange for immunity from criminal charges. Can she get immunity? Possibly, if she testifies against Falk. But she'll still face the civil suit and the divorce proceedings. Good. That evening, I came home to an empty house. Claire had taken most of her clothes, but left everything else exactly as it was. Her pregnancy books were still stacked on the coffee table. Her vitamins were still in the kitchen cabinet. The ultrasound photo was still on the refrigerator. I threw it all away. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Claire. I'm staying at Sarah's. We need to talk about practical things. The house, the accounts, the baby. I deleted the message without responding. The next morning brought more news coverage and more women coming forward. By lunch, 7 women had accused Falk of using his own seed without consent. The story was trending on social media, and reporters were camped outside his clinic. Torres called with an update that made my day. Falk tried to contact your wife yesterday. My source at the phone company says he called her 17 times. She didn't answer. Smart of her. His lawyer probably told him to cut all contact. Association with her now just makes him look worse. What about the other women? Are any of them married? 2 of them. Both are filing for divorce. This is destroying families all over the city. I felt a savage satisfaction knowing that Falk's actions were finally catching up with him. He'd played God with people's lives, used his position to satisfy his own twisted needs, and now he was facing the consequences. But it wasn't enough. I wanted him to lose everything the way I had. That afternoon, I got a call from Claire's sister, Jessica. Danny, we need to talk. About what? About Claire. She's a mess. She's barely eating, barely sleeping. This stress can't be good for the baby. The baby that isn't mine? Regardless of who the father is, that's still your niece or nephew. No, it's not. It's the child of a woman who betrayed me and a doctor who committed fraud. Nothing more. Danny, I know you're hurt. Jessica, your sister destroyed my life. She lied to me for months, committed fraud, and was prepared to let me raise another man's child without telling me. Hurt doesn't begin to cover it. She made a mistake. Stop calling it a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. This was a calculated betrayal. She loves you. She loves the idea of not losing half her assets in a divorce. Jessica was quiet for a moment. What do you want from her? What would it take for you to forgive her? There is nothing she could do. Nothing. This is over. So you're just going to destroy her? Ruin her life completely? I'm not destroying anything. I'm revealing the truth. If that ruins her life, that's on her. What about mercy? What about forgiveness? What about justice? What about consequences? Jessica hung up on me. That evening, Melissa Carter called with news that made everything worthwhile. The DA is filing criminal charges against Falk tomorrow. Fraud, medical misconduct, sexual attack. He's looking at serious prison time. Sexual attack? Using deception to obtain consent for sexual contact. It's a felony in this state. And Claire? They're offering her immunity in exchange for testimony against Falk. She'd have to admit to the affair and confirm that she knew the baby might not be yours. Will she take it? Her lawyer would be stupid not to advise her to take it. It's her only way to avoid criminal charges. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing with notifications. The story had exploded overnight. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, everyone was covering the fertility doctor scandal. I scrolled through the coverage while drinking my coffee. Photos of Falk being led away in handcuffs, interviews with sufferers, expert commentary on medical ethics and patient trust. And buried in one article, a single line that made me smile. One of the affected patients, Claire Hayes, is married and expecting Dr. Falk's child. Claire's name was now forever linked to this scandal. When anyone Googled her, this would be the first thing they'd find. For the rest of her life, she'd be known as the woman who helped a doctor commit fraud. Perfect. My phone rang. Torres. Have you seen the news? Hard to miss. Falk's clinic is done. The medical board revoked his license, his malpractice insurance dropped him, and his business partners are kicking him out. He's financially ruined. Good. What about the other sufferers? 3 more civil suits filed yesterday. The lawyers are talking about a class action suit. This could end up being one of the biggest medical malpractice cases in state history. After Torres hung up, I went to work feeling lighter than I had in months. Justice was being served. Falk was facing prison and financial ruin. Claire was publicly disgraced and facing her own legal troubles, but the best part was still coming. That afternoon, Jessica called again. Claire took the immunity deal. Smart. She has to testify against Adrian. She has to admit to the affair in open court. Good. The truth should be public. Danny, she's devastated. She's talking about giving the baby up for adoption. That's her choice. How can you be so cold? This used to be the woman you loved. The woman I loved never existed. She was a lie Claire told to cover up who she really was. People make mistakes. Jessica, stop. Just stop. Your sister is a liar and a cheat who helped a criminal defraud vulnerable couples. She deserves whatever happens to her. And the baby? The baby will be better off without either of its parents. Jessica was crying now. I don't know what happened to you, Danny. You used to be kind. I learned that kindness gets you betrayed. Goodbye, Jessica. I hung up and blocked her number. 2 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom watching my wife testify against her lover. She looked small and fragile in the witness stand, her pregnant belly visible beneath her conservative blue dress. Melissa Carter had warned me this might be difficult to watch, but I felt nothing except satisfaction as Claire detailed her affair with Falk. How it started during a routine appointment, how he'd convinced her that their connection was special, how he'd suggested that natural conception might be more successful than IVF. Did Dr. Falk ever suggest that he could father a child with you? The prosecutor asked. Not directly, Claire said quietly, but he implied that his genetics might be superior to my husband's. And you believed him? I was desperate. We'd been trying for years, and nothing was working. When Adrian, Dr. Falk, suggested that maybe the problem wasn't with me, I wanted to believe him. Did you know that, doctor? Falk had used his own seed with other patients? No, he told me I was special, that what we had was different. But you knew the baby might not be your husband's? Claire's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. And you didn't tell your husband? I hoped it would be his. I thought maybe we could be happy, and it wouldn't matter. Even though you knew he believed he was the father? Yes. I watched Claire break down on the stand, sobbing as she admitted to the fraud. The jury looked disgusted. The media sketched her tears. Her life was being destroyed in real time, broadcast to the world. I felt nothing. After Claire's testimony, the prosecution called Dr. Adrian Falk to the stand. He looked haggard, his silver hair greasy and unkempt. The confident doctor who'd taken our money and our hope was gone, replaced by a broken man facing the end of his career and his freedom. Dr. Falk, the prosecutor began, how many patients did you impregnate with your own seed without their knowledge or consent? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Dr. Falk, are you the biological father of Mrs. Hayes's unborn child? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Dr. Falk, did you use your position as a medical professional to engage in sexual relationships with vulnerable patients? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. For every question, the same answer. Falk's lawyer had clearly advised him to say nothing, but his silence was damning. The jury could see his guilt written all over his face. During a recess, I stepped outside the courthouse for air. Claire was there with her lawyer, surrounded by reporters shouting questions. Mrs. Hayes, how long was your affair with Dr. Falk? Mrs. Hayes, did you know other patients were involved? Mrs. Hayes, what does your husband think about the pregnancy? Claire tried to push through the crowd, her hand protecting her belly. For a moment, she looked directly at me. Her eyes were red from crying, her face pale and drawn. I looked right through her and walked away. The trial lasted 3 more days. Expert witnesses testified about medical ethics and patient trust. Other sufferers told their stories. Financial experts detailed the fraud. When the jury returned with their verdict, I was sitting in the front row of the gallery. On the charge of medical fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of sexual attack, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of professional misconduct, we find the defendant guilty. Falk showed no emotion as the verdicts were read, but I saw his hands shaking. His wife had left him weeks ago, taking their children. His medical career was over. He was facing years in prison. Justice. The judge sentenced Falk to 8 years in prison and ordered him to pay restitution to his sufferers. As the bailiff led him away in handcuffs, he looked back at the gallery. His eyes found mine for just a moment. I smiled. After the trial, the civil suits proceeded quickly. With Falk's criminal conviction, liability was clear. My suit against both Falk and Claire was settled for a substantial amount, enough to buy a new house, start over completely. Claire fought the divorce initially, but her public disgrace made any sympathetic ruling unlikely. She eventually agreed to a settlement that left her with almost nothing. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts, all mine. 6 months after the trial, I ran into Sarah, Claire's former co-worker, at a coffee shop downtown. "Danny," she said hesitantly, "how are you?" "Good. Really good." "I heard about the settlement. That's good. How's Claire?" Sarah looked uncomfortable. "She's struggling. The baby was born last month." "A girl? Is she keeping it?" "For now, but it's hard. She's working at a call center, living in a studio apartment. Her name is still all over the internet whenever anyone searches for the case. That's unfortunate." Sarah stared at me. "You really don't care at all, do you?" "Why should I?" "Because you loved her once. Because she's the mother of a child, even if it's not yours. Because she's a human being who made a mistake. She's a person who made deliberate choices to betray and defraud me. The consequences are hers to live with." "What happened to you, Danny?" "You used to be compassionate. I learned that compassion for people who don't deserve it is just another word for being a sufferer." Sarah shook her head and walked away. That evening, I sat in my new house, a modern place across town with no memories of Claire or our old life. I poured myself a drink and pulled up news articles about the case. Dr. Adrian Falk was serving his sentence in state prison. His medical license was permanently revoked. His former clinic had closed, and the building was now a yoga studio. Claire Hayes had testified against him in exchange for immunity from criminal charges. She'd given birth to his daughter and was reportedly struggling financially and emotionally. She worked at a call center and lived in a studio apartment in a bad part of town. I took a sip of my drink and felt nothing but satisfaction. My phone buzzed with a text from Torres. He'd become something like a friend during the investigation. Saw the news about Falk getting denied parole. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled. Falk would serve his full sentence. 8 years in prison for destroying families, for abusing his position, for thinking he could play God with other people's lives. 8 years to think about what he'd done. I finished my drink and went to bed in my empty house, in my king-size bed that I no longer had to share with a liar. Tomorrow I had a date with a woman I'd met at the gym. Someone with no connection to my past, no knowledge of the trial beyond what she might have seen on the news. Someone who couldn't betray me because I would never trust her enough to give her the chance. I'd learned my lesson. I'd gotten my justice. And I'd never be anyone's sufferer again. In the darkness of my bedroom, I smiled one last time thinking about Claire crying on the witness stand, admitting her crimes to the world, thinking about Falk in his prison cell, finally paying for his arrogance. They'd both gotten exactly what they deserved. The end.